This morning, just before 11 a.m. Eastern Time, something extraordinary happened. The President of the United States publicly threatened to impose 100% tariffs on every single good imported from Canada. Not 25%, not 35%, 100%. A complete doubling of prices on Canadian imports. The reason? Canada's new trade deal with China. Now, before you dismiss this as just another tariff threat, stay with me, because what's unfolding right now is not simply about trade, and it's not really about China. This is about a fundamental shift in North American power dynamics, and the next 6 months will determine whether the most successful trade partnership in modern history survives or begins to collapse. Let's rewind 1 week. Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney lands in Beijing. It's the first visit by a Canadian leader to China in 8 years. 8 years of frozen relations, retaliatory tariffs, and diplomatic standoffs. Carney took office just last year, replacing Justin Trudeau, and he arrives with a clear goal: reset Canada's relationship with the world's second-largest economy. Inside the Great Hall of the People, Carney sits across from President Xi Jinping. After hours of closed-door negotiations, they emerge with a deal that would have been unthinkable just months earlier. Canada agrees to allow 49,000 Chinese EVs per year into its market at a tariff rate of 6.1%. In exchange, China slashes tariffs on Canadian canola from 85% to 15% and eliminates tariffs entirely on Canadian lobster, crab, and other seafood. Carney calls it a landmark agreement, a strategic reset. And here's why this matters. Just 2 years ago, Canada imposed 100% tariffs on Chinese EVs, matching the United States exactly. Same policy, same logic, same alignment. Now Canada is breaking ranks. Inside Canada, the reaction is sharply divided. In Saskatchewan and Manitoba, where canola exports are economic lifelines, farmers celebrate. Their Chinese market is reopening. At the Atlantic coast, seafood producers cheer. But in Ontario, the heart of Canada's auto industry, Premier Doug Ford is furious. He warns that Chinese EVs will anger Washington and threaten domestic manufacturing. 5 days later, Carney boards another plane, this time to Davos. At the World Economic Forum, Carney delivers a speech that sends shockwaves through the room. "We are in the middle of a rupture, not a transition," he says. "The old order is over." He never mentions Trump by name. He doesn't need to. He talks about coercion, weaponized supply chains, tariffs used as leverage, and then the line that brings the room to its feet: "If you're not at the table, you're on the menu." The audience gives him a standing ovation. The next day, Trump takes the stage. His speech is confrontational, dismissive, and familiar. He threatens Denmark over Greenland, mocks unnamed foreign leaders, and then turns to Canada. "Canada lives because of the United States," he says. "Remember that, Mark." Carney responds calmly but firmly. "Canada doesn't live because of the United States. Canada thrives because it is Canada." That refusal to bend is the turning point. Trump withdraws Carney's invitation to a U.S.-led advisory board. Then come the social media attacks. And then, this morning, the tariff threat. Now here's where most coverage gets this wrong. This isn't primarily about personal offense or wounded pride. This is about USMCA, the U.S.-Mexico-Canada trade agreement, the agreement Trump himself negotiated. And here's the critical detail. USMCA comes up for mandatory review in July 2026, 6 months from now. If the 3 countries don't reaffirm it, the deal enters a slow expiration process that could end it entirely by 2036. Until recently, Canada and Mexico expected a routine review. That changed when Trump won a second term. Trump has already imposed tariffs on Canadian goods. He's threatened to leave USMCA entirely. And now he's making China the red line. The Trump administration believes China is using Canada and Mexico as backdoors, routing components through North America to bypass U.S. tariffs. Is it happening at scale? The evidence is mixed, but Trump doesn't care about nuance. From his perspective, Canadian openness to Chinese EVs is the beginning of something larger. Chinese factories in Canada, assembly plants qualifying under the rules of origin, vehicles crossing into the U.S. tariff-free. From a strategic standpoint, his concern is irrational. But here's what that logic misses. Canada isn't moving towards China because it prefers China. Canada is moving because it no longer trusts the United States. When a partner threatens annexation, calls your leader a governor, uses tariffs unpredictably, you diversify. That's what Carney is doing. He's openly said Canada must reduce its dependence on the U.S., which currently absorbs nearly 75% of Canadian exports. And that diversification is exactly what Trump is trying to stop, because once Canada has alternatives, American leverage disappears. That's why this tariff threat matters. Trump likely has the legal authority to impose it, and if he does, the damage won't be theoretical. Canada is the top export market for 36 U.S. states. Nearly $3 billion cross the border every day. Canada supplies most U.S. crude imports, electricity imports, uranium, steel, and aluminum. A 100% tariff doesn't hurt Canada alone. It shocks American consumers, manufacturers, and energy markets. You don't replace those supply chains overnight. Factories shut down, prices spike, layoffs follow. So what happens next? Watch Carney's response. If he backs down, Trump's strategy worked. If he holds firm, we are heading towards the most serious trade confrontation in North America in decades. And watch the USMCA negotiations, because July is the real deadline. Either this partnership adapts, or it begins to unravel. This isn't just about tariffs. It's about whether alliances still matter, whether agreements still mean something, whether power replaces rules. The next 6 months will answer that question. If this breakdown helped you understand what's really happening beneath the headlines, consider subscribing. This story is just beginning, and I'll be here for every chapter. Tell me in the comments, does Carney hold firm or does Canada bend? Because the future of North American trade depends on that answer.